There is a clear connection between events in the Middle East over time and what has been happening in Europe. And there is a connection between the kind of rhetoric that is being used in Europe and in the United States to silence criticism of Israeli politics by describing such criticism as anti-Semitism. So I will say the following. There has been obviously a rise in anti-Semitism and xenophobia in Europe, and that was reflected in the recent elections. It appears that the most powerful motivation for people in Europe, in Germany and in France and in Belgium and the Netherlands and Italy and Sweden and so forth, to vote in larger numbers for extreme right-wing parties was the rejection or fear of increasing migration to Europe, particularly from Muslim states. But of course, behind that, there is also, and there's a fair amount of proof of that, there is also a rise in anti-Semitism. So how do we deal with this question? How do we understand it? My sense is that countries such as France and certainly Germany have had a great deal of trouble coming to terms with the fact of their own changing populations. They have for long seen themselves as Christian white countries, and at the same time have their demography has changed substantially. And that instead of trying to adjust and adapt and change in view of these changes, they have tried to ignore them, to push them under the rug, so to speak. And that has created a great deal of resentment among immigrant populations and a great deal of fear among larger growing sectors of white European populations, especially among those who feel that they have not been served well by their own governments. So what we are seeing in large part is a politics of fear and resentment. And there is, of course, a connection. One can draw some links between that and what happened in Europe in the interwar period. Again, a politics of fear and resentment and looking for scapegoats that could be used in order to bring power to various demagogues, bigots, and racists who eventually took over much of the European system in the late 1930s. How is this connected to events in the Middle East? Of course, we know that the large amount of migrants coming from such countries as Syria played a major role in the politics of fear and resentment in European countries. It is only by investing greater energy and greater thought in events in the Middle East and making the lives of people there more secure that one can both come to terms with the kind of migration that will obviously continue from the Middle East, but also stem the amount of refugees who are fleeing insecurity, war, and tyranny in the Middle East by Europe actually investing in trying to resolve the crises there. And the crisis right now in Israel, which, as I said, can easily spill over to the rest of the Middle East, is one that needs very urgently to be addressed. Those who oppose this kind of criticism of Israeli policies that I have expressed here say that much of this is anti-Semitic. Obviously, I have no connection with that kind of sentiment. But under that argument of anti-Semitism, there is a profound misunderstanding of where anti-Semitic sentiments actually come from, often from the right wing, often from fascist, proto-fascist, post-fascist movements, and a profound misunderstanding of the actual roots of the conflict in the Middle East itself. If we reject that argument, and if we look directly at the crisis itself in the Middle East and see that resolving it will also make it easier to confront major issues within Europe, then I think we would be making a positive step forward.